call this meeting to order. We'll start with a roll call. The clerk already has it, so we'll go on to item number 3. And before we get started with the mayor's presentation, I have a note for the mayor who could not be here tonight. She wanted me to read. City Council, I am not able to attend tonight's meeting, so I've asked Councilman Prather to give a brief summary on my behalf. First, I'd like to thank the Finance Department, along with Director Margie Miller, for their hard work with the proposed budget. Although this is the first city budget Mrs. Miller has prepared, her level of expertise is evident. The budget is very similar to what I was presented with. I made very few changes. Last year, I added in a council-approved $15,000 for MSP improvements. And this year, I have included $20,000 for MSP improvements. Last year, I also asked the CBB to match the city's $15,000, which they did. So our $15,000 investment is in MSP became $30,000 with our partnership. Last year's funds were spent on electrical and lighting at the historic prison, and the cost was shared by the city, the county, and the state of Missouri. The new lighting, electrical, and enhanced tours, which increased to almost 26,000 people last year. Those improvements also allowed the Salute to America concert inside the walls, featuring Travis Tritt over the 4th of July weekend, the first of its kind of events, with proceeds going back to MSP. The remainder of the city's MSP budget is a cost share with the CVB to make much needed improvements to the wall, or to make needed improvements to the walls. I respectfully ask the council to maintain the requested funding for MSP in the mayor's proposed budget. The impact of those dollars in the site that was so unique to Jefferson City, something that no other city has, to allow for increase in tourism and events, and also to become the neighborhood anchor for Capitol Avenue and Lafayette Street. Sincerely, Mayor Turgeon. At this time, I will go over to the Steve.
Yep. I appreciate that. Really not much to add to that other than you've got the mayor's budget message, and it will be on our website here shortly. I do want to mention that the overall budget is $60,820,613.51, and the general fund portion of that is $32,227,269.08. And if okay with you, we'll go ahead and have the finance director go through and explain the revenues.
That'd be great. Go through item number 4, which is a revenue discussion. Are we ready for that yet?
Yes, yeah, I was going to say.
Okay, and the clerk just told me that the mayor's budget is out there already.
The budget is, but I don't know that the budget message is on.
It
is now.
No, the budget message is on the website as well.
All right, thank you. Ms. Miller?
Good evening. We're going to be going through the revenue tab in your printed budget book. I will be going through each one of the sections, just giving some general information, and then if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer that.
Yes, you don't have to wait till the very end. If you want to ask as we're going through, you're more than welcome to. Just do it at that time.
Okay. We'll start off with the sales and use tax line. The FY15 actual for the sales and use tax was $10,856,302. The amount that we expect to end the year with is really close to right at $11 million. The proposed budget for that line for 2017 is $11,300,000. This is basically a 3-year average. Anyone has any questions? If not, should I just keep moving on?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay, the next section is intergovernmental taxes. It's basically your motor vehicle tax and gasoline tax and road and bridge tax. The FY15 actual for this section was $2,239,453.34. The 2016 estimate for the year end is $2,237,417. The proposed for FY17 is $2,220,000. Any questions?
Councilman Holovich?
Do we have those estimates in front of us? Or we don't have a sheet, do we?
What you have in front of you would be the actual for FY 13, 14, and 15, the 2016 adopted. One of the numbers that I'm looking at is what I expect the FY 16 year end to be based on year-to-date and the revenue model that's shared with the Finance Committee each month. So that would be the only number that you don't have in front of you, is what we expect to end FY 16 with. Okay, moving on. The other taxes, this is basically the cigarette tax. It has been showing a decline. The FY 15 actual was $120,658.44. The FY 16 model shows that we will probably almost reach that 120,000, but what we have budgeted for FY 17 or projected for FY 17 is $116,000. Okay. Franchise and utility tax section, the actual for FY 15 was $7,295,903.68. According to the model, we expect that fiscal year 2016 will end at $7,226,000, which is a decline, and that, as we discussed in the finance meeting, is because of the mild winter that we had. So this projection is probably a little bit low depending on what happens with our electric bills the next few months. But we are not showing that we will meet the projected amount from the proposed budget from 2016. But what is proposed for 2017 is a total of $7,500,000 for that line. Basically, no increase was included.
Any questions?
Okay, moving on to the property tax section. The FY 15 actual was $5,261,507.72. The model for FY 16 shows almost $5.3 million in collections for that line. The property taxes for FY 17 proposed is $5,259,399. That is based on an estimate, because we do not have at this point in time the assessed valuation from the counties, at least the final assessed valuation. So I don't expect that number to change, but we do not have finals from the counties at this point.
Any questions on the property tax? Revenues. Okay, we'll move on.
Okay. So there is no proposed FY 17 projections for the intergovernmental. As discussed in prior years, those grants are not budgeted because of not knowing what those are, and so those come in as budget amendments throughout the year. So the next section is the charges for services. The total amount collected in FY 15 was $2,579,221.34. The model for this, for FY 16, what we expect to end FY 16 with, is $2,681,075. The proposed budget for 2017 is $2,715,993.66. The large majority of this are those administrative chargebacks and fuel chargebacks and labor chargebacks that we have from our that are charged back to those funds, the transit, airport, parking, wastewater, and housing authority, anything besides the general fund. The The next section is fees, licenses, and permits. The actual amount collected in this section for FY15 was $760,615.19. The projection for FY16 based on the model is $826,677.85. The projection for FY17, what is proposed in this revenue budget, is $708,400.
Councilman Costello?
Thank you. The question I have on this, Mrs. Mueller, is on looking through the book here, is building construction fees is probably the biggest one that's going down. It's going down about 60,000. What do we think that? Because there's no big hospitals being built, or?
Correct. In the previous years, it was those large construction projects for those big companies that came into town.
Okay.
Mhm.
I just see a big drop there. I was wondering why.
And we do not have anything built into this FY17 estimate for any large construction projects.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Moving on to the next section is fines and forfeitures. In FY15, the actual collections in this section were $1,011,319.02. The FY16 projection, based on the current model, is $968,478.60. The FY17 projection is $1,009,100.
Any questions on this section? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next one.
Okay. The next section is contributions and donations.
In 1 second, if you guys need us to slow down at all, take a look at things, just let us know. All right. Thank you.
Okay. The FY15 actual was $175,644.15. The projection for FY16 is $221,003.15. The FY17 proposed budget for this line item is $302,250. This basically is the amount from the contract for the damages to roads for the solid waste contract.
Any questions on that? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Okay, the next section is other operating revenues. The FY15 actual amount was $255,988.33. The expectation for FY16 is $74,000. Other operating revenues. Yes, $74,000. The amount that is in the proposed FY17 budget is $83,000. Are there any questions on that section?
Seeing none?
Okay. Interest income for FY15 actual was $127,987.76. The model for FY16 shows $121,993 expected by the end of the year. The FY17 estimate in this proposed budget is $110,000.
Any questions?
Other non-operating revenue, the FY15 actual collections were $47,724.76. The model for FY16 is $193,180. And what is proposed in the FY17 budget is $25,000. Basically, the FY16 amount that we have collected already year-to-date includes the sale of Fire Station 3, which is the sale of asset in this section.
Any questions? Okay.
Okay. The transfers in is the next section. The FY15 actual amount was $32,943.83. We do not have an estimate for FY16 in this section. The FY17 proposed budget is $48,152.11. This, as you can see, this section includes the transfer from lodging tax and a transfer from the self-funded health insurance to help pay for the part of the human resource assistant salary and benefits.
Okay, any questions on that line? Seeing none, moving right along.
Okay, carryover surplus, there is no activity. So the total revenue before entitlement grants or other miscellaneous funds in this general revenue is $31,397,294.77.
Any questions at all on this last item? And we go back and revisit the other items if you guys would like, or Councilman Hussey?
Are you going to walk through the grant piece, or is this the conclusion of?
We can walk through.
Sure.
The
I don't have
miscellaneous.
questions on it, but I have some
Yeah.
questions on revenue things, but I was kind of waiting until we got finished, and then I can ask them.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I'll just ask it now. Larry's egging me on. Back to sales tax. So I see a line item, a request of 11,300,000, and I thought I heard said that that was a 2-year or 3-year average, but that can't be, because we've never exceeded $11 million in the past few years, and the projection to end this year is, and this is probably more of a question even for Steve and his proposed budget, and Carrie if she were here, but the projection to end the year is 10.9 million. So are we projecting an increase in sales tax for FY17 on top of what 16 is going to finish? Does that make sense?
Yes. Let me just explain the methodology that I use for the sales tax.
Okay.
So if you look back at 2013 actual, that was a growth of only, well, actually, it wasn't a growth. It was a negative 0.2% over 2012. Then you move forward to the fiscal year 2014, and the growth between 13 and 14 was 4.62%. Moving on, the 2015 growth over 2014 was 7.46%. The year-to-date is around 2.7% over FY15 actual. So if you look at a 3-year average, percentage-wise increase, we're looking at 4.02% increase. A 2-year average is 6.04%. So we went with the more conservative 3-year average approach. Now that 3-year average of 4% was applied to the FY15 actual to come up with that 11.3 million. If you look at where we expect to be at the end of FY16, it's right at 11 million, and so that 300,000 increase is more like the 2.7% increase we are experiencing year to date.
Okay. And I would just state that's a different approach, and at least this is my 4th budget cycle. It seems as though we've always looked not at an average growth over time, but actual numbers and average those. I'm kind of looking at a couple more senior members to make sure that I'm correct in that.
That sounds correct.
And so we may need to philosophically have a conversation about if we want to take a more aggressive approach or in line with growth, or the more conservative approach that we've used in the past, which I can argue both ways, but that's different than the past 3 budgets that I've been a part of, for the practice of it at least. And did that same sort of your model apply then to the franchise utility tax too?
Each one of these lines were looked at individually. I did not use the same methodology
Okay.
on every one of them.
Okay.
But yes, going back to your statement on sales tax, I did look at the methodology over the last several years, and last year it was a 2-year rolling average. It was not a calculation of a percentage increase over a certain year. But you can also see that the adopted budget was 10.3 million, and we're going to end the year with 11 million. So it was a much, much more conservative look at a projection.
And it was a 3-year average a couple of years ago. I think I debated and argued last year for a 2-year average, which was a nice improvement. I see it both ways. I just want to make sure. I think that being a little bit aggressive with sales tax revenue forecast in the past is what got us in a little bit of financial challenges, where higher revenues were projected, and so then dollars are allocated to be spent, revenues don't match. But again, it's not out of line, it's different than what we've done the past couple of years at least, that's all. So I just wanted clarification to know how you arrived at that, so thank you.
And this model is actually what is used by the legislature when they do have a consensus revenue estimate. And even without having that consensus revenue estimate, both the House and Senate analysts put together a projection, and it is based on a percentage increase instead of any kind of rolling average. So this is more modeled after the state model.
Any other questions? Councilman Henry?
Just a brief comment to Councilman Hussey's statement. I would say if this was maybe even a year ago or 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't agree with this methodology, but considering where we are at this point, I think this is a pretty good methodology. It's different than what we've seen within the last 3 or 4 years, because we had to do things differently in that regard. But I actually like this methodology. So in terms of where we are at this point, so I think it'll be a good thing for us.
And in speaking with Mrs. Miller prior to this, her termination or last year, she probably would have done it differently also had she been presented with those particular revenues. And is that correct?
Correct.
Councilman Holovich?
Does this project any fund balance increase or flat fund balance?
I would have to refer you to the large pink sheet summary at the back of your book. Is this on? Did it turn off? Okay. Those 11 by 17 sheets in the back. There is section 1 is the revenue expense summary. And if you look at that, there are projections for where we think we're going to be at the end of FY16 as far as the fund balance, which is $7,081,754, which is about 23.03%. With the budget as it's presented tonight, the estimated FY17 ending fund balance is $5,478,635.74. which is a little over $1.6 million over the minimum reserve of 17%. It's 21.97%, represents 21.97% of the adopted FY17 budget, or the estimated FY17 budget.
And then Councilman Costales did point me to the second page of the mayor's memo, so I hadn't had a chance to read all that before. So, thank you.
All right, do we have any other questions on revenues or methods? Councilman Hussey?
I don't mean to harp on this. I guess I have a little concern. I understand using the multi-year average, but from 14 on sales tax revenue, from 14 to 15, there's a pretty big spike. But really, we're projected to end at like 10.9.
It's almost 11 million is
Yeah.
expected for
And so from
FY16.
15 to 16, we're seeing a growth of about $144,000 on actuals. So what accounts for, I guess, to me, that means kind of a flattening economy right now, yet we're going to add $300,000 to the revenue forecast for 17. And I'm not saying that the formula, I understand how you arrived at that number, looking back over a few years. I'm just wondering, like, 15 and 16, we've kind of flattened out again on sales tax to a certain extent. A little bit of growth, but not much. What changes in 17 to see an increase of $300,000? Not that any of us can play crystal ball and figure out. Now, I believe the state is seeing where their salary increases and some growth in that regard, which is a boost to the economy. I just want to make sure we're comfortable adding to our revenue forecast, putting a number in there that we've never hit as a community, and then allocating dollars on the expense side to match that. I can get there and I understand the formulas, but at the same time, the actuals to me speak more about a flattening economy, not one that's going to see that much growth next year.
Councilman Holovich?
What's the projected year end on our revenue? You said it, but remind me,
For that particular section or in total?
in total.
The projection is a little over $31 million. No, that is the proposed budget for FY17. Before the grants, that is $31,397,294.77. The revenue model that we use for FY16, which includes actual year-to-date and then estimates for the remaining months, shows us, projects us to end the fiscal year with a little over $31 million in revenue.
Follow up on that. And our budget was 30,700,000, and we're going to end up with 31 million. Am I?
Actually, the amount before grants is, the adopted FY16 budget is $30,007,468.
I was trying to get to the point where you can make me feel comfortable, and Councilman Hussey, with regard to, you're only looking at one line item. And you take the balance of all those line items together. If you failed a little bit on one, you might make it up on another. And I was looking, as you're presenting budgets, I have pluses and minuses here. We have a minus 100,000 in one category, upwards and 300,000 in that that first one, so on the balance, I'm trusting that they would make it at the very end. I mean, that's what the case you're making. But I'm still struggling with a few items here that I need to get together on. Some of this is fresh to me here.
Do you have any idea what the average is for the state's anticipating as far as increases in their sales tax this year?
Well, I don't believe they had a consensus revenue estimate last year, but the last projections I saw were anywhere from 2.5% to 3.5%.
Okay, and ours is averaging where?
If we end the year with the 11, on the sales tax line, if we end the year with the almost $11 billion that we expect to end, the difference between the 11.3 proposed here and that 11 is about a 2.7% increase.
Thank you.
The remaining pieces in that revenue section are those small funds like the school resource officer, the Mustang, you got some planning and protection services, the MPO, and planning and protective services redevelopment grants. Did you want me to go through those, or, I mean, those are the remaining pieces that are deposited into the general fund that make up that total $32,227,269.
I think, yeah, I would mind you go ahead and go through that, and that way if they come up with other questions, by the time we finish, we can address them at that time.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the school resource officer, basically what this is 50% of the total school resource officer expenses. We are reimbursed in a grant for that. That amount for FY15 actual was $176,674.55, and the projection for FY17 is $194,541.30. Up above that, I'm sorry, is account 10-149 entitlement grant. I skipped that. The FY15 actual amount is $175,136.37. And the estimate for FY17 is $205,619.24. Most of that are those federal grants that we have a pretty good estimate on what we will get from those. After the school resource officer, the Mustang grants. And once again, these are reimbursements for amounts that we do spend for some salaries and DEA vehicle reimbursement. The actual amount in FY15 that was collected was $71,249.37. The FY17 projected amount is $26,000. The next section is Planning and Protective Services, MPO. Basically, this is a federal grant that we receive 80% of our total MPO expenses reimbursed. And then under the local grants piece of this, it's another piece from the county. The amount collected in FY15 is $148,283.70. The FY17 projected amount is $383,313.78. And then the last piece is Planning and Protective Services redevelopment grants. The amount that was collected in FY15 is $100,696.13. That included about $94,000 in federal grants. What we have here is a projection under just local grants of $20,500, and that is based on the amount from Cole County and the Allied contract, and recycling, education, and promotion from Republic Services. That comes up to the total of $32,227,269 in projected revenues for FY17.
Okay, well, that is the end of the revenues. Councilman Hussey?
I guess I have another question on the franchise and utility tax.
Mhm.
So, the projected forecast by year's end for 16 is about 7.225 million, I think, which is down from our budget from last year.
Correct.
And some of the previous year's numbers are a little bit more challenging to use as a guide, I suspect, because the tax rate was a different rate. Yet we're still going with 7.5 million in the budget here, and so I know weather has had an impact to a certain extent on these things, and it's hard to know what's going to happen at year's end. Is it a little risky to take what we project to be the year-end actual here and add to that when the trend looks like it's been slightly going down as a revenue line item? And I know we can't control the weather, and we might end up just fine and dandy on this one, but I guess I'm looking at two line items here. The sales tax one, where we're going $300,000 higher than the year-end number that we're projected to get. And then on the flip side, we're going $275,000 higher than a GRUT tax line item that has sort of gone down, that's very weather dependent. And so I add those two together, and I think that's about $575,000 that is just going on top of year-end numbers I don't know if the trends tell me that or not. Again, I understand the formula to get there. I guess I'm looking more at this is a policy change in my mind, more so about how we set revenues. And I want to make sure we're clear and understand that we're comfortable with that's a more aggressive approach. And we're talking about 1.8 to 2% of the overall budget, and these two line items being projected that way, of 300 over and 275 over year-end actual numbers. Does that make sense?
Okay.
2015, right?
2016 projected year-end numbers.
Projected year-end, okay.
Correct. And we don't know what the electric side of the utility tax is going to do these next few months with the
sure.
heat wave that we've had. So we might make up some of that 300,000 that we're behind year to date because of the gas from the winter. But I just wanted to relay to you that on the electric and the natural gas utility tax, I did use the rolling average that has been used instead of any kind of percentage increase over the previous year. So on the electric utility, the 2-year rolling average is a little low, is like $4,013,000 estimate. A 3-year rolling average is right at $4 million.
Okay.
And so we went with the more conservative $4 million. On the gas, the 3-year rolling average was $1,018,000. A 4-year rolling average was $1,010,000. So we went with a conservative $1 million on that line. So it was not calculated the same way sales tax. It was not a percentage increase from the previous year. These are the rolling averages that you're used to the methodology that you're used to hearing about.
Any other questions? Councilman Holovich?
Let me try this one more time now that I've found the line item I'm looking at. Okay. On the Revenue 100, on page 15, last year's budget, in FY 2015 was 30,709,000. Then 16's budget was 30,000,007. Well, 30 million. So that 30 million, when it comes to the end of the year, will be what, is your estimate? I think you answered this before, but I
Yes.
didn't get it.
For that subtotal before those
Yes,
small
exactly.
accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah, the model is showing that it's going to be $31,010,000 approximately.
Okay. And then, so the proposed budget is?
For that subsection is the 31 million, or up to that point, is $31,397,295.
Which is an increase from 31, so our increase from where we expect to be to where we would be in new budget is 400,000?
Less, yeah, a little bit less than that, but yes.
Okay, so that's the increase that we're projecting over the year end.
Over FY '16.
Thank you. I got it finally.
Had a large road fee portion in there as well. The solid waste number. I don't
That
know.
contract was $300,000.
Councilman Gonzalez?
Since you guys have brought that up about the road waste, how come that almost doubled? And looking at previous years in here, I mean, it went from 152,000 up to 302.
That's the contract amount, the 300,000 is a contract amount, and then there is an increase built in every year. So I'm assuming that the prior years, it was a partial year and not a full year contract.
No, that's a better negotiated contract is what that is.
Is it a new contract?
That's a new
contract amount?
Any other questions? Just looking at it, I'm not sure I get the feeling that everybody's 100% comfortable with this, the projections or the sales tax. We can vote on it tonight, or we can move it to the next meeting, whatever you guys favor. Councilman
Well,
Howard?
if we're not comfortable with it, then we ought to at least send the staff off with some things for them to come back with and to help us be more comfortable. But if we don't have anything to send them off for, we'll be having the same discussion next Thursday.
Correct. Well, if you are comfortable, or someone is, they're more than welcome to bring forward a motion to approve the revenues.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to approve the revenues. We'll have discussion now. Any, Councilman Holovich?
And I think it's always been the tradition for us to build this budget, and then we finally approve everything, right?
That's correct, and we want something to go off of, a number to start off with. It doesn't mean that's a number we're going to end up with. It could very well be, but as discussion furthers down the road, we can make changes as we need. But at this point, I'd like to get somewhere to where we can get a number that we can start putting our expenses toward. Any other discussion? Councilman Branch?
I was just going to add that, you know, the revenue's only half the budget, so might as well go ahead and pass this, I would think, then get into the expenditures, and then see where we end up. 'Cause that's when you have to make your adjustments. Yeah, because you can't discuss it until you move it on.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I see we're ready to vote. All those in favor of approving the forecast of revenue, say aye.
Aye.
All those against? It passes. Okay, well that, unless there's any other discussions, any other items anybody want to bring up regarding revenues?
The budget calendar, budget meeting schedule is out on our homepage. The next budget committee meeting is not scheduled until Thursday, August 4th. And at that time, we would be going through the proposed budget highlights, just a general overview, and then the 5-year financial plan, which will be dispersed to council before that time period. And then we can begin, at that point, if we wanted to start that evening, we could begin with individual departments, or we could wait to the next scheduled meeting to begin with the departments at your pleasure.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Miller. So that will be at 5:30 next Thursday in this room. Councilman Casales?
Be a week from this coming Thursday.
Yes, the next.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying. Any other questions or discussion? Councilman Holovich?
Yeah, we'll start the departmental discussions at that time. Is that correct?
Well, first there will be the general overview, budget highlights, and then we'll talk about the 5-year financial plan, the 5-year forecast for the general fund. And then if we want to continue that evening, we can start with individual departments.
Okay. When we do that, it's my preference that each department has gone through quite a bit of work, I see in the front of these pages, given highlights and where they are with their performance measures. And I'd appreciate where they stand on their performance measure, whether or not, as they present their budget to us. And even if that measure is being worked on and it's not the best measure in the world, that's worth hearing too. But I'd like to acknowledge the work of the departments and their progress on that performance measures.
Thank you. Any other comments? Motion to adjourn? Then move to adjourn. All say aye. All right.